Good morning and welcome to the Magic Forest. It's a beautiful day outside. I've been on the beach already this morning, um, but now we're back in making fairies things. Um, I watched my last video and I realised it was a bit mumbly and a little bit dry. So I thought, well, usually I have all this charisma, but when I'm talking about something technical like moulding, it can be a little bit dry. And you'd think after 15 years of teaching that I would be good at explaining things very well with clear diction. However, I don't know, there's something about talking to the world or the world of the fairy folk that kind of makes me a little bit nervous, I guess. So I have to get used to it, but I figure the best way to do that is to try to be more of myself, not worry too much about the time, because I think I've tried to rush it a little bit before, and just be myself. I think one thing that's interesting about this whole adventure is that even though I know what my dream is to build a magic forest and fill it full of fairies, in some ways, if I saw myself as an artist, you know, 2-3 years ago, and somebody says you're going to be painting figurines in a small room, I would be quite shocked, I like, wow, painting figurines. If you look at my shelves and look at my desk, it looks like a kind of nerd station. So I've actually become a nerd, or maybe I have always been one. I've always loved Lord of the Rings and figurines and making things, but there is a crossover between this world, the fantasy world of fairies, and other circles such as Dungeons and Dragons and witches and what they call Ren Fair, I believe Cottage Core, all these different names, but they are all joined by the same thing, which is a love for the other world, the other side, the world of fairies. And so what we're doing today, we're going to a festival tomorrow, which is exciting. It's like a big hippie festival, so that's good. And what we're doing as a kind of promotional thing is we are making some little fairy pendants. It's what I call a friend of fairies pendant. So a fairy would see you wearing this and they would know that you are friends of the fairies. So I'm going to make a little video of how to make one. I'm just going to set you on the thing over here without setting off Bixby. So I've cut some clay up already. This is the bit I should be good at, teaching demonstrations. But again, even with teaching demonstrations, you could practice all you like and then you mess up the actual thing. So, made a nice little ball of clay. I've got this nice little piece of perspex which I use. I have one side for cutting and one side I keep smooth. But it's very useful for doing what you're doing. I'm going to roll that out. Can you see that nicely? No, perhaps not. I'm going to put you a little bit more over there. Roll it out. We want about 1/4 of an inch thick, because when you are cooking, 1/4 of an inch is the optimum cooking time, and it's a good thickness. So I've made this little mold from this original. So the original I carved out with a scalpel, and that took about 3 hours. But then I made it into a epoxy resin stamp, almost like a biscuit cutter, and then I can put that down on top, squash around. I guess the original idea for the logo was the idea of kind of little runestone tiles, and so to make the actual runestone tiles is kind of quite rewarding, because that's where the original idea for the logo came. I always lift it up first so that it doesn't stick to the plate. And then, as you can see, I've got my fairy symbol on there, but I'm just going to sort of clean it up with this little pointy stick, like a rubber pointer. And it also helps that you can get like a nice flared end, or a tapered end to each line, which makes it look more fresh. Again, like making jewelry, I did not think I would be making jewelry out of polymer clay, because it's like, I'm in a lot of polymer clay groups, and most people use polymer clay just to make jewelry. And so again, it's one of those crossovers, but I never thought I'd be making jewelry this soon. Although I do love jewelry, making jewelry. I find one of the hardest things when I've been single is I love jewelry so much, and you walk past the jewelry shop and I always look at it and look at all the beautiful stones and all the beautifully made jewelry, and then like, oh, I've got no one to buy jewelry for. But making jewelry is beautiful. Just choosing the stones. I did like a jewelry making course once, and just choosing all these beautiful stones. I call them semi-precious stones, but I think semi-precious is a bit of a horrible word. And carefully peel it off. And then we've got our finished pendant. Now, if this was going to be a necklace, I used this leather stamp to make a hole, but these ones are going to be keychains, so you have to screw the little keychain thing in after. Okay. Yeah. Going through to the oven. There's George. Oh, so we've got lots of different styles here, different colours. And I try to get a texture, kind of make it look like it's kind of stonish. Lots of different colours, his and hers and in between. Something for everybody. So then, once they're finished, we take them through to Miss Huang Hongwei, who is chiefly a fashion design, head of marketing and interior design, but excellent at choosing colours. Say hello, Hong. George. And then they would come through here, 15 minutes on the grill. Those ones are ready. Are they ready? Oh, still a little bit hot. You have to wait till it's fully cooled down. If it's not fully cooled down, the clay can sometimes crack. Then they come out here for a spray paint. And it's nicely dry. The sea's so nice today. Dip this morning, but didn't have quite time enough to go paddle boarding or SUPing. I'm an SUPer now. Although it's really hard. I thought SUPing would be something that I was suitably qualified for, because I love skateboarding, I love surfing, I love snowboarding, I love kayaking. So I thought I had all the skills to SUP, but apparently it's much more difficult than I thought. But just like last night, we went out and the sun was setting and we were out back just sitting around on the boards, and it was like, actually this is where I wanted to be. This is where I wanted to get to, you know, behind the surf when the sun is setting. It's such a beautiful place. So whether or not I can only stand on it for a minute, it's still got us to the place where I want to be. Okay. And take that little bit off there. We just wrap that up. 1 second. Get back on your stand. Get back on your stand. Oh, you may have also noticed that this logo design appears on my cheek. And that was the day that I finished teaching. Somebody had said to me a couple of weeks before, if your business fails, you can always go back to teaching. I suddenly thought, I said as a joke to the person, like, I said, I thought about getting a face tattoo just so I can never go back to teaching, just as a joke. And then the idea just kind of manifested in my mind. And then on the last day of teaching, I just woke up in the morning and I realised that getting a face tattoo was the best plan. And just waking up and thinking getting a face tattoo is a good idea might not happen to you many days in your life, and so I had to capitalize on that moment. and that's how it happened. But I think it's also about self-belief, you know, burning your bridges with organized society and believing in fairies, and even just selling fairies. You know, I didn't think I would be trying to sell fairies, and even when I was making them, people were like, can we buy them? And I'm like, no, you can't buy them, they're just for my magic forest. But actually then when we started the molding techniques, suddenly I realized that getting fairies into the world is a beautiful thing. So then suddenly you're like, well, we need to popularize it, we need to do internet marketing. So this is just ordinary black shoe polish, which is great because it's not only waterproof, but it also seals it nicely and it gives a really nice kind of look. So I've put it all on there like that, and then just gonna kind of rub it off basically. And you can also, because it's shoe polish, you can also polish it. So it's a really nice thing to use with any sort of clay. And so yeah, there's a kind of constant, a myth, a popular myth that all artists all want to be famous, you know, and that's what everybody believes, that all artists, the only reason they're doing whatever they're doing is because they want to be famous. And it's not really true. Most artists are not really obsessed with the idea of fame, but most artists would just want to make work. And Grayson Perry once said, the definition of an artist is someone who forges a life in which they have the time and the space in which to create. And I think that's a beautiful definition. It's not about selling work, it's not about being famous, it's about creating a life or forging a life in which you have the time and the space in which to create. And I think that's beautiful. And so even if just selling a few fairies kind of makes the fairies sort of pay for themselves, because they do cost a fortune, you know, like each fairy costs about $60 in materials. And even if they can just kind of pay for themselves, certainly the first few fairies are literally going to pay for themselves, only break even, but that would be enough. And then I've got some for my magic forest. Some can go into the world and bring joy and love, and some don't survive. But the more fairies in the world, the better, you know. I think fairies bring joy and love, and that is the role of the artist within society, to remind people of the other side, the beautiful things. And so the more fairies in the world, the better I see it. And so I don't mind the fact that actually you have to do social media marketing, you have to do all this, you have to get them out there. But it's also the first time in my life I've ever actually made art that people actually want. Because I've always been so, you know, in my, you know, making art for myself, which I thought was so important as an artist, and it is. However, it just so happens that people do actually want fairies, whereas previously, I guess with abstract painting, it's probably not so much. A lot of people don't understand abstract art. I am going to do a nice video on abstract art. So, I guess that one's almost there. And then you can just polish it up. That one's actually for a keychain. So yeah, we're going to go to a festival. We've also got like a little QR code sticker that we can put on the back, so we can actually just put them on people's heads and they can become friends of fairies like you already are because you're watching my video. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I shall see you after the festival. We're going to have an exciting time, and we've got some little bits and pieces fairy wise to make our own little magic forest somewhere in the corner. So love you and leave you, and peace.